They laughed at her weight, but then her billionaire husband stunned everyone live. The dimly lit ballroom buzzed with derisive whispers. All eyes were on her, the woman everyone loved to mock. Alone at the edge of the crowd, Grace shifted uncomfortably, her heart thumping loudly in her chest. They laughed at her weight, but it cut deeper than any joke. Tonight was supposed to be glamorous, a celebration, but with every chuckle, the air thickened like a storm cloud ready to burst. And then, just as she thought the night couldn't get any worse, the moment arrived that would alter everything. The spotlight blazed to life, illuminating her as she stood there, a target for their jeers. She could hear the whispers, "Who does she think she is? And look at that dress." It wrapped around her uncomfortably, clinging to her in all the wrong places. Grace felt the heat rise in her cheeks, a scream trapped in her throat. A quick glance at the mirror reflected a girl trapped between worlds, caught between their laughter and the woman she wanted desperately to be. The flickering candles around the room cast elongated shadows, as if they too were laughing at her, and then, just as the laughter reached its crescendo, a figure appeared at the back of the room. The enthusiasm shifted like a tide, people turned, curiosity replacing scorn. It was David, her billionaire husband, and he had that intense look in his eyes. She had seen it before, a fierce determination mixed with love. Clad in his tailored suit, he strode forward with purpose. The laughter died down, replaced by hushed uncertainty. When his voice boomed through the speakers, the energy shifted again. "Let me tell you something," he started, and the tension was palpable. Every ear was eager, hanging on his words, every heart racing. He was about to speak the truth, the raw undisguised emotion of a man who loved fiercely. The murmurs faded as his eyes locked onto Grace S., a promise of support in every glance, and in that split second, they all knew, this was not just about her weight. It was about dignity, worth, everything she had fought for. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As he continued, there was a shift inside the crowd. People leaned in, entranced. Would he humiliate her publicly? Or was this a twist they never saw coming? Just the way he said her name sent thrill down her spine. But as he spoke of their dreams, of her beauty far beyond physical confines, Grace felt the burrowed pain of years begin to unravel. Silence gripped the room, but what David unveiled next, it would leave them all breathless. What could he possibly say that would turn their laughter into disbelief? They were on the edge of something explosive. And in that precise moment, a loud crash echoed from the back of the room. Everyone turned. The tension returned, thick as fog. What was coming next? The room fell silent, and every head snapped towards the source of the crash. A table had toppled over, glasses shattering like frozen dreams against the marble floor. The sound rippled through the crowd, changing the atmosphere from one of tense expectation to alarm. Gasps filled the air as waitstaff scrambled to gather the scattered remains, their expressions bewildered, but the shock was short-lived. From the haze of confusion emerged a figure, Lauren, Grace's childhood nemesis, her sly smile replaced by an expression of sheer outrage. She staggered forward, pointing a finger at David as if he were a criminal exposed in broad daylight. "You think you can just come here and play savior?" she shouted, her voice sharp against the thick tension. "She doesn't deserve any of this." Grace's breath caught in her throat. In her deepest fears, she had anticipated ridicule, but this? Lauren was crossing the line, turning what was meant as a moment of revelation into a chaotic spectacle. David's jaw tightened, the calm in his gaze flickering dangerously as he took a step towards Lauren. "You don't know anything about her," he replied, his voice reaching a low growl, resonating power. Grace deserves to be celebrated, not belittled. It's time everyone realized that. More whispers erupted around the room. People leaned in closer, their faces a mix of intrigue and shock. Grace dared to glance around, catching snippets of half-formed sentences, some supportive, others bitter. Would they really rally behind her now? Or was this just the spark that ignited even more laughter? Celebrated? Lauren sneered. For what? She turned to the crowd, her gaze sweeping across familiar, judgmental faces. For being a punchline? Let us be real, do you really think anyone cares? The words hit Grace like a punch to the gut. Her heart raced, each beat echoing the disbelief and shame she had fought so hard to outrun. But suddenly, David took her hand, firmly intertwining his fingers with hers. His warmth coursed through her, wrapping her in a cocoon of protection against Lauren's venomous words. This isn't about the past or anyone's perception, David said, eyes blazing with passion. He raised their intertwined hands high, drawing everyone's attention back to Grace. This is about who she is, a beautiful, intelligent, strong woman who has been through hell and come out shining. This, he gestured to Grace, is the future. And she's not going to hide anymore. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd as the icy grip of doubt began to loosen. But Lauren wasn't done. The truth always comes out. She spat, venom lacing her tone. You think they'll accept this fairy tale forever? Just wait until they find out who the real Grace is. Every muscle in Grace froze at that moment. What did Lauren mean? A lump formed in her throat, anxiety clawing at her stomach. She could feel the weight of the world bearing down, every pair of eyes waiting for the next revelation, the next twist in a tale she wished would come to a close. Before she could find her voice to respond, the room echoed with anticipation, as David's expression sharpened. Grace isn't defined by anyone else's narrative. Tonight, I'll show the world her truth, whether they're ready for it or not. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air, pulling in the crowd with gravitational force. Grace felt the trembling shards of her past bounce off the walls. They were a chorus of disbelief, but also an opportunity. As David continued, his voice unwavering and powerful, Grace realized she was standing on the brink of something much bigger, a chance to reclaim her story. But what could potentially emerge from the shadows of truth? Before she could ponder her next steps, the lights began to flicker ominously, plunging the ballroom into an unsettling darkness. What awaited her when the lights came back on? The darkness enveloped the room, swallowing the last whispers of doubt along with the glitter of chandeliers. Grace's eyes darted across the void, her heartbeat matching the rhythm of the flickering lights. The crowd's murmurs morphed into anxious whispers, a collective gasp hanging in the stagnant air, like a slow-motion gasp held too long. David's grip tightened around her hand, grounding her against the tumultuous waves of uncertainty. The shadows seemed to stretch and breathe, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. She released a shaky breath, searching for any glimmer of light among the looming dread. Then, just as abruptly as it had plunged into darkness, the ballroom erupted back into illumination. But the sparkle was gone. Instead, the overhead lights shimmered coldly over a sea of bewildered faces, and the tension crackled with electricity. All eyes were glued to where Grace stood, the silence heavy with expectation. David reached into his pocket, and the crowd instinctively drew closer, leaning forward into the heavy atmosphere. What is he planning? Someone whispered. I swear if he makes it worse, another voice trailed off, but Grace's heart steadied against the growing anxiety. In that charged moment, Lauren let out a derisive laugh, sharp enough to cut through the layers of unease. This is a real joke. How long do you think this will last, David? They'll see her for what she really is. Grace winced, feeling the echoes of Lauren's laughter grating against her senses. Each sneer lingered like a bitter aftertaste in her mouth, pushing her toward the brink of panic. But somehow, David remained unshakable. He faced Lauren with eyes alight with defiance, his voice steady despite the chaos. You don't know anything about her, he reiterated, infusing every word with conviction. You're stuck in the past. The world is seeing the woman she truly is today. As he spoke, the lights flickered once more, plunging the ballroom into momentary darkness. Heart racing, Grace could hear the whispers around her, a mixture of curiosity and doubt. The inner critic shouted louder than any voice around her, urging her to retreat, to hide behind the walls she had built. But then, more stunning than the flickering lights, a distant buzzing resonated through the air. She turned to David, a questioning look in her eyes. Was this part of whatever grand reveal was being orchestrated? The lights returned, brighter than before, illuminating an elegant podium that Grace hadn't noticed before. Its surface gleamed, polished to perfection, but it was what was behind it that had the crowd gasping. Rising slowly, the line of profile witnesses began to take shape. Suddenly there was a backdrop revealing a massive banner with her name in bold letters. Shock bathed the room as the realization dawned on the crowd. Her story was unfolding before their eyes, and they were unknowingly part of it. David stepped forward, a broad smile morphing into something deeper, more intense. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice booming with charisma, "prepare for a journey into the truth of one incredible woman, not just the one you think you know, but the one who has inspired change and hope." Grace felt her pulse quicken, her heart racing in rhythm with the hum of excitement swelling in the crowd. But Lauren's laughter rang out again, bitter and spiteful. "Don't be fooled, everyone. The truth could shatter everything." And with those words slashing through the veneer of hope, the tension in the air thickened. As David moved toward the podium, the buzzing continued to grow louder, and the crowd leaned forward with bated breath. What truth would emerge? Would Grace's past truly be laid bare, or was it all just another ploy to draw her back into darkness? The suspense hung heavy as the unexpected vibration intensified, finally revealing its source, a large screen that flickered to life, and silence fell over the crowd. What awaited them in this new revelation? Was Grace prepared for the truth the world was about to witness? Suddenly, the screen flashed images of her life, surreal moments that blazed through her mind like memories wrapped in flames. But then came an unmistakable image from her most hidden secrets, and the room gasped as the weight of the truth came crashing down. What had she kept hidden, and was it enough to bury her once and for all? The screen flickered, and the room pulsed with shock. Faces twisted in disbelief, mouths agape. Grace's heart dropped into her stomach as images from her long-buried past scrolled across the display, vivid and ruthless. Each snapshot was an arrow, piercing through the illusions she had crafted around herself. There it was, her 9-year-old self, a chubby girl with wild curls and bright eyes, smiling proudly in a school play. Then came the gym class shots, her legs awkwardly bent beneath her as she struggled to keep up with an unforgiving pace. Gasps resonated throughout the crowd, a wave of discomfort echoing against the grand walls of the ballroom. The laughter fueled by peer pressure rolled back into her mind, taunting her spirit. Suddenly, the images jolted forward to exam results plastered with red ink. The voice of a teacher echoed in her memories, "You're just not trying hard enough." Each picture seemed to accumulate a weight of its own, building pressure in her chest. Memories she thought she had locked away burned hotter than before. Then came the real nightmare, a video clip of her adult self, struggling to walk across a stage. It was hard to watch, her anxiety palpable. Right then and there, her essence felt stripped away, leaving her vulnerable before 1,000 judgmental eyes. "Is this really what you want to show us?" Lauren's voice rang out in mockery, thick with disdain. Her pathetic attempts at seeking validation. Grace's jaw tightened, fighting to keep her breathing steady. David turned sharply to Lauren, his fury matching the chaos rolling through the room. "Shut up. This isn't about her. It's about the journey we all undertake. You think you can redefine someone by their past?" Just as the screen flickered again, David stepped up to the podium, undeterred. "This is just a segment of the incredible woman she has become. Watch closely." He waved his hand, and the images transitioned seamlessly from her childhood traumas into her remarkable rise, a montage of charity work, empowering speeches, and fierce resilience. Grace felt a rush of warmth surge within her, igniting a flicker of hope against the overbearing dread. The crowd murmured, a mixture of what-ifs and could-bes. For a brief moment, light broke through the thick veil of despair. Yet, an overwhelming mix of emotions tangled within her: fear, pride, shame, and they pulled her in opposing directions. Why are they gripping onto this narrative? She thought, disillusionment clouding every uplifting moment. Yet, as images of people inspired by her story began to flash, young girls holding up her books, mothers thanking her for support, Grace felt a sense of affirmation swell in her chest, but just as her spirit began to lift, the screen turned dark again. A new image emerged that struck at the very fabric of her being. It was a shadowy figure, a haunting look in their eyes, someone she hoped to never see again. A face from the past. Gasps rippled through the ballroom as people recognized what was about to unfold. It wasn't just her high school failures or childhood frustrations. The true danger had arrived, the unexpected secret that could unravel everything she had fought to build. "What is that?" someone whispered, confusion and trepidation now flooding the atmosphere. David's confident expression faltered as the figure on the screen leaned closer to the camera, and a chilling smooth voice rang out, "I know everything about Grace, and today I plan to reveal it all." Grace's heart raced, cold sweat breaking out on her forehead. Who was this person? What did they know that could threaten her? The room felt suffocating, each gasp only amplifying her dread. Desperate, she caught David's eye, realizing the stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. Would he still stand by her, or would the specter of her past drag her down once more? As the unsettling tension hung in the air, a heavy silence wrapped around the room, broken only by the ominous words displayed on the screen, "Stay tuned for the truth." What truth lay waiting to be uncovered? Would it cement her place as an icon or shatter her world into fragments? The ominous bite of uncertainty gripped her soul, and she braced herself for what was yet to come. A low murmur filled the ballroom, swirling anxiety like a storm cloud closing in on them. Here it was, the calm before the tempest. Grace could feel the weight of 1,000 scrutinizing eyes on her, each gaze prying deeper into her secrets. What truth? What else could this figure unravel? Her breath quickened, turning shallow, as she clenched her fists to suppress the tremor racing through her body. David stepped closer, his brows furrowed in concentration. He exuded a calm she desperately craved, but even he seemed on edge now. All around, whispers slithered through the crowd: concern, anticipation, curiosity. Those once supportive faces turned uncertain, eyes locking onto Grace, searching for answers she didn't have. The screen flickered once more, bringing the shadowy figure to center stage, now looming larger than life. "Her perfect facade is about to crack," the voice continued, oozing with confidence. "I know a secret that could change everything for Grace." Gasps erupted anew, a visceral reaction sweeping through the audience. Grace's heart raced, hammering against her chest. Panic bubbled under her skin, and she fought to maintain her composure. She had fought too hard to have it dismantled now. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice a strained whisper that barely cut through the rising tension. The figure on the screen chuckled, and it sent a chill racing down her spine. But what struck her the most was the familiarity of that laugh, the cruel mockery embedded with the ghost of her past. With a quick flash, the image morphed, revealing more intimate, personal details of her life, her family, her marriage, her scars. Faces of people she'd lost along the way, stark memories, and bruised moments danced across the screen. Shame clung to her like a second skin. Everyone looked on, and she could hear murmurs of disbelief, pity, judgment. "Can't wait to see how she wriggles out of this one," Lauren sneered, her voice slicing through Grace's thoughts. Anger ignited within her, fierce and unrelenting. How dare they? She wasn't the fragile girl anymore. She thought of the battles she had fought, the bridges she had built. "Stop it!" Grace yelled, surprising even herself. The room momentarily fell silent, tension thick enough to strangle. It felt like a moment frozen in time, each eye glued on her. "You don't know me. You don't know my story," she declared, voice rising in strength with every word. "Is that so?" The figure leaned closer, eyes glinting with what Sarah recognized as malice. "Let us reveal the truth then. Everyone deserves to know about the secrets lurking beneath that pretty smile, like the betrayal that brought you to your knees." Betrayal? The word lodged itself in her throat. Memories flashed in her mind: failed trust, shattering loyalties, painful instances she wished she could forget. Her mind swirled in a haze. What could they possibly know? David's face was taut, a mask of tension that was hard to ignore. "I want to let you do this," Grace managed, forcing the words through a tight throat. The figure smirked, unbothered. "But the truth is, it's already done. Let the audience decide what they feel about your facade." Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and the screen flashed again, with ominous background music dripping like syrup. The next clip was titled "The Deception of Grace." It showcased a carefully curated selection of her personal life, moments of joy now twisted into shadows of doubt, panic seared through her. The laughter from the past was back, suffocating, mocking. As the tide of horror washed over her, she felt like she was drowning in her own memories, her worth, her identity floating away with every second. But all of that changed the moment David stepped forward, his voice breaking through the haze like a lifeline. "Let me tell you about Grace, the truth you want to find in that flimsy narrative." He turned back toward her, eyes burning with an intensity that set her heart racing again. "Grace," he breathed, and she couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope ignite within her. What was he going to say? But before he could, a loud crackle erupted from the screen, cutting him off. "And I think it's time for her husband to join the conversation." Her breath caught in her throat. Who was about to enter this storm? What secrets were still hidden in the shadows? As the room swelled with anticipation, Grace clutched the podium, bracing for whatever unfurled next. What could David reveal that would turn the tide in her favor? And who else had been swept into this treacherous game? A heavy silence fell over the ballroom as everyone held their breath. Grace's heart thundered in her chest. David had faced challenges before, but what lay ahead was different. This was about them, about her. The screen flickered again, and the atmosphere shifted, pulsing with uncertainty. Then there he was, under the dim stage lights, Peter, her husband, looking every bit the part of the million-dollar businessman he was. Confident, imposing, yet tender in ways she often took for granted. The air crackled with tension as his piercing gaze found Grace, lingering there with a mix of affection and steely resolve. "Grace," he began, his voice echoing through the stillness like a drum. She wanted to leap off the stage and run towards him, but her feet felt cemented to the ground, unable to escape the eyes that were now glued to their potential unraveling. "I've known Grace for years," Peter continued, his eyes narrowing as he faced the crowd. "And I can assure you, there's more to her than just what's on that screen." The shadowy figure seemed to shrink in the background. The crowd murmured, unsure where this would lead. Grace instinctively knew this was the moment her reality teetered on the edge. David took a step back, allowing Peter to take center stage. "Grace has faced demons that would break most people," he said, his voice booming now, cutting through the noise. "But she's a warrior. Every scar, every trail she's walked, those are hers. I stand beside her, not in judgment, but in pride." Even as those words hit her like a warm wave, the murmurs among the audience began to shift. Faces of disbelief slowly morphed into expressions of curiosity. She could feel a crack forming in the wall of scrutiny, hope flickering as she registered the change. "Well said, but where's the loyalty?" The figure mocked, chiming in once more, rubbish in its tone. "Let us talk about what they don't see behind closed doors." Peter glanced over at the screen, his expression darkening. "We all have our secrets. It's what we choose to do with them that defines us. Grace and I share everything. Even pain. But trust me, you don't know the half of it. Before she could grasp his words, images flickered like lightning across the screen depicting their life together, birthdays, anniversaries, and candid moments that had once brought her joy. But they twisted, corrupting their beauty with shadows of what had gone wrong. Their wedding vows, once romantic, were punctuated with the betrayal the figure had spoken of. Grace's stomach sank. Could he be leading them straight into a trap? And there, lurking behind that laughter, she realized, was that contempt, or was it fury? Was she ready for what would come next? But what I have to say isn't about us. Peter's voice cut off abruptly as the image on screen shifted dramatically, revealing a scene Grace had hoped would never surface. A grainy video showed their last fight, words of anger spilling like venom, a snapshot of raw emotion that would cut any relationship loose. Take a look. The truth behind the picture-perfect couple. The figure was jubilant, feeding on the crowd's energy, their anticipation like a sickly sweet nectar. Peter, wait. She tried to intervene, reaching out a hand, but panic swirled within her. You can't just let them see. He bellowed, his eyes blazing into hers, unyielding. A betrayal is a betrayal, the figure said smoothly, relishing the unfolding drama. But how about we dive deeper? What about the entire truth, the web of lies that ties you all together? Let us show them what Grace really wanted to hide. The sound of his voice reverberated, clashing with the heartbeat of the room. Grace felt the weight of the world crash down on her once more. She was racing against time, and suddenly everything seemed fragile: her marriage, her identity. These strangers held their breath, ready for blood. Just when the tension reached its peak, the lights flickered again, plunging the ballroom into darkness. Grace's heart raced wildly, she could almost hear her thoughts echo in her mind. Was this the end? Or something worse? And then, as if orchestrated, the lights blazed back on, revealing a stunned crowd turned motionless with shock. There, standing behind Peter, was an unexpected face she hadn't seen in years, the key to the chaos twisting around them. What did they know? What secrets were lurking just below the surface, waiting to shatter everything all over again? Peter's hands clenched as he whipped around to face the figure. It was clear, the storm was far from over. The room erupted into chaotic murmurs. Grace felt her heart drop. That face, Olivia, her once closest friend, now seemingly a ghost from a past she had fiercely tried to forget. How had she shown up now, in this moment, to tear everything apart? Olivia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. She took a step forward, her confidence radiating arrogance, as if she thrived on the uncertainty crashing over them. The crowd was a sea of intrigue, eyes shifting back and forth, seeking out answers as the tension curled around them like smoke. Peter, Olivia crooned, her voice sugary yet laced with malice. It's been a while. Such a surprise to see you standing here with your warrior. She turned her gaze to Grace, her smile widening, revealing something sharper beneath. Tell me, Grace, do you still think you can outrun the truth? Grace's vision blurred as if she were trapped inside a whirlwind, the sharp edges of Olivia's words slashing through the air around her. She couldn't speak, couldn't even breathe fully. The room felt as if it were closing in. Peter stepped defensively closer, every muscle in his body taut, ready for whatever verbal onslaught was coming. Let us not pretend this is over, Olivia, Peter countered, his voice calm but firm. You know better than anyone what we've been through. What we've built together. Built? Olivia scoffed, laughter bitter as it rang out in the tense air. You mean you've built a facade? She pivoted, her attention now tearing through the mesmerizing crowd, hungry for their undivided attention. You all know the truth about Grace, don't you? Beneath the designer clothes and the smile? There's darkness. Desperation. Grace felt a tremor of rage rush through her. How could Olivia do this? Memories of their friendship felt like a sinking ship, dragging her down. Suddenly, lights on the screen flickered again, shifting to images Grace had never thought would see daylight: private family archives, happy moments tangled with ghostly shadows of guilt. Remember our little secret, Grace? Olivia taunted, her voice dripping with venom. How you begged for my help but then turned on me. It's all here. The crowd gasped. Shock ruled the room as each image projected ripple effects, weaving a web of memories and regrets from moments buried deep within her. Hand over mouth, Grace felt raw vulnerability. That's not the whole story. Peter shouted, desperation washing over him like a tide. You can't just weaponize the past to hurt her. But he seemed alone in his fight as the audience buzzed, confusion swirling in their eyes. Grace's head spun, and the walls began to close in, but Olivia still thrived on this chaos. It was a spectacle for her, one she delighted in. Each taunt poisoned the air further. We can keep digging, Olivia continued, her smile twisting into something villainous. Or we can come together and tell them how it really was. The lies, the betrayal, the one time she came to me for help and failed. The truth that she chose to hide, while pretending this life was perfect. Grace's heart sank, torn between wanting to defend herself and the reality of everything Olivia was exposing. Each word felt like shards of glass, cutting deeper than anything she could comprehend. Then, in a moment of desperation mingled with defiance, Grace turned to Peter. What are we going to do? She gasped, her voice barely above a whisper, but laced with urgency. He caught her gaze, a silent connection passing between them, a promise that they'd face whatever came next together. But just at that moment, the screen flickered yet again, freezing on what appeared to be a police report. The crowd gasped collectively, and Grace's blood turned to ice. Was this another layer of Olivia's twisted penchant for destruction? Or was it something far more sinister? As the report filled the screen, the truth began to unravel, and with it, the weight of the world pressed down harder than ever before. What secrets could shatter their fragile lives even further? Grace's heart raced, the battle lines were drawn. What did this mean for them? What truths still lay hidden in the depths, waiting to be uncovered? The storm had only begun. The flicker of the police report vanished with a sharp crackle, replaced by a series of photographs that left the room gasping in disbelief. Grace felt her pulse quicken as each image illuminated not just events but memories she had buried deeply, each one clawing at her over the years. What is this? She murmured, more to herself than anyone else. The audience, still transfixed, was captivated by Olivia's puppet show. Ah, the facade wears thin. Olivia exclaimed theatrically, her eyes glimmering with a twisted pleasure. This must be hard for you, Grace. To see the truth like this, laid bare for everyone. Peter's protective stance shifted, his eyes darting between Grace's ashen face and Olivia's triumphant grin. Stop this. He barked, his voice slicing through the tension. You're crossing a line you don't want to reach. But Olivia just laughed, a cold, piercing sound that echoed through the hall. Crossing a line? Or maybe I'm just revealing the lines you've all pretended weren't there. She motioned at the pictures again, urging the crowd to scrutinize the details. The images morphed once more. They were from a vintage charity gala, a night where Grace had worn a daring red dress that hugged her curves, while wealthy patrons danced in and out of their own hypocritical reveries. Grace felt tiny, invisible. But there, in the corner of the photo, shadowed and forgotten, there were discussions happening that spoke of whispers, secrets exchanged like precious gems. Remember that night well, Grace? Olivia's voice echoed like a mocking ghost. How your life pivoted just from one mistake. Or was it two? The crowd shifted, craning their necks in yearning for more drama, more scandal, oblivious to the tremors of tension escalating with every heartbeat. Grace, focus, Peter whispered urgently, his face mere inches from her. She could feel his warmth, his strength. But all she could think of was the part of herself Olivia had dug up. Instinctively, she wanted to retreat, to hide from the unrelenting scrutiny of the audience, but that was impossible. Let us not forget, Olivia continued, her multicolored fingers dancing across the images projected behind her. Grace's endless pursuit of perfection wasn't just for show. It came with a heavy price. Unanswered calls, late-night rendezvous, and let us address the elephant in the room. What happened that night? The hushed audience now buzzed with curiosity. Whispers flared through the crowd, criticizing and questioning Grace. Each voice felt like a blade slicing deeper. They were waiting for her to respond. The silence felt suffocating. "Olivia," Peter stepped forward, his brow furrowing, "you can't twist this moment. We all know you have your own skeletons, too. Every story has another side." "Another side?" Olivia scoffed, her gaze never wavered from Grace. "Oh, sweet Peter, you've lost sight of the truth. Let us watch as this unfolds. Shall we?" The screen flickered to life again, showcasing a grand mansion where laughter erupted in the background. Grace's own laughter intertwined with Olivia's twisted smile at the edge of the frame. Memory was a cruel leash around her heart, and then there it was, a photo that froze her chest, her breath. It showed a sleek black car parked outside that same mansion, its license plate clear as day. Familiar, ominous. Grace's throat tightened. "No," she whispered, the word barely escaping her lips. "Oh, yes." Olivia leaned closer, her voice now a honeyed poison. "This is the night everything changed. When your own choices turned against you. The moment they placed the blame squarely in your lap." The buzz intensified, the crowd poised at the precipice of scandal. Grace felt sick. Each word Olivia spoke felt like a stone tossed into a lake, the ripples expanding outward, shattering her image. What did that photo mean? This was spiraling away from her grasp, and she felt the weight of all the eyes, all the judgments sealing her fate. "Peter," Grace's voice trembled, the emotion unspooling, the raw panic evident. Had this been Olivia's plan all along? To expose her? To ruin everything she had rebuilt? The truth twisted like vines around her throat, a beautiful horror of reality she couldn't escape. What more could she have? Peter demanded, his frustration boiling over. His eyes searched Grace, concern breaking through the madness. "We'll get through this." But even he couldn't mask the distrust brewing among the audience. As the police report reappeared on screen, the truth loomed larger. Bits of a missing person case intertwined with their narrative drew gasps from the corners of the room. People shifted uncomfortably, whispers growing louder. Had Grace been hiding more than just her past? The pressures mounted, knotting in Grace's stomach. Each face in the crowd held a question that dug deeper. Were those hidden skeletons resurrecting to destroy everything? As the projector glowed ominously, the final slide revealed a name that sent ice through her veins. A name she thought silenced forever. With trembling hands, Grace grasped Peter's arm, a question hanging in the air. Could she really face whatever awaited her next? Was she truly ready for the fallout of secrets she hadn't known or remembered? And on that cliff, the darkness beckoned, leaving both her heart and the secrets lying in the shadows aching with uncertainty. The silence dragged on like molasses, thick and suffocating as Grace's heart raced. The room buzzed, a hive of whispers swirling around her, heated discussions igniting like flash paper. Every word echoed in her mind. A name. A name that felt like a digital tattoo etched on her soul. She could almost hear it repeat inside her head, Lucy Lane. Is it true? A voice cut through the murmur like glass shattering. Didn't she disappear right after that night? Grace's chest tightened, she could feel Peter's grip on her arm squeeze tighter, his silent support fighting to fend off the swarm of accusations that threatened to envelop her whole. Just breathe, he murmured, but each breath felt like a mountain to climb. Everyone make sure to stay seated. Olivia shouted, her laughter superficial, dancing around the mounting dread. You wouldn't want to miss the climax of this drama. After all, there's a story to unfold. Someone's going to have to explain this mess. As she paced on stage, Olivia reveled in the chaos, like a cat toying with a trapped mouse. Grace felt exposed, raw, a hatchet swing beneath the scrutiny of judgmental eyes. Each breath felt heavier than the last as she fought off the tide of memories surging back, memories she longed to drown. "Grace, tell them." Peter leaned closer, his voice an anchor in the storm. "Tell them the truth." His eyes searched hers, pleading. But what truth could she tell? The truth she had buried so deep it had merged with her nightmares? Lurking in shadows, waiting for just the right moment to resurface, Grace turned back to the screen, her pulse quickening as a new image bloomed into view. It was grainy, a snapshot of a bustling street illuminated by street lamps, but in the corner, half hidden behind a passing figure, was the unmistakable outline of a black car. A chill ran down her spine. It looked just like the one from that night, the one she tried to erase. "Grace," a voice broke her reverie. It was Morgan, her former best friend, breaking through the crowd and making a beeline straight for her. "You need to talk. We have to clear this up." "Morgan." Grace's breath caught as she saw the concern etched in her friend's face, but doubt stirred like a storm inside Grace. How could they clear up something so clouded in chaos? Morgan lifted her hands, the pleading look in her eyes urging her to listen, but before Grace could respond, Olivia's voice sliced through the moment. "Let us roll back the tape, shall we? Let us see what really happened that night." The screen flickered again, and the room tensed. "God, no," Grace whispered, burying her face in her hands for just a moment. Every picture revealed another morsel of her past, clawing to the surface. The laughter, the music, the unspoken truth of betrayals that haunted her. That night was twisted, frayed at the seams, and all the threads were unraveling now. "Grace," Peter urged again, shaking her gently. "You have to say something before it's all taken from you." The flashing images faded away, replaced by the unmistakable sound of police sirens echoing in the background. The screen filled with frantic movement, people crowding, shouting, pleading. The camera latched onto a woman with red lipstick, her silhouette flickering in and out of focus. Then, a harsh focus came and it was Lucy, laughing beside Grace at the fundraiser. A shockwave rumbled through the room. "Come on, Grace!" someone shouted. "What was your involvement?" Eyes turned on her, relentless, some even filled with pity, and that single voice was a match igniting the room again. "Enough!" Peter shouted, his patience frayed. "This doesn't define who she is. People make mistakes." But the damage was done, dissent rippled through the crowd. Grace could feel it, the cracks widening, the pressure bearing down like a vice. "Maybe you're hiding something worse," another voice retorted. "Maybe you're—" Olivia found her rhythm again, grasping the chaos swirling wildly. "Oh, but there's more. Did you think we'd stop here? No, my dear audience, this is just the beginning." Grace felt her stomach drop as she turned her gaze back to the screen. What else could Olivia have unearthed? What else would they drag into the light? Would it even matter if she stood up and confessed? Would it be enough to silence the storm rising? As the projector whirred ominously, she could almost see her reflections in the expectant eyes of the crowd, caught between shame and resolve. She had half a mind to bolt, to escape the pain clawing at her, but something deep inside screamed for honesty. And with every passing moment, the weight of the secrets pressed down harder on her, squeezing out the very breath from her lungs. She had to find her voice. She had to stop Olivia's madness. But first, she needed to know, what else was going to be revealed? And what if the truth was even darker than she feared? Grace steeled herself, preparing for a fight, knowing the conclusion could ignite a fire she might not be able to extinguish. The countdown of anticipation hung in the air as the screen flickered back to life, illuminating the crowd. Grace's heart pounded like a drum in her chest, deafening her thoughts. Olivia stood as the conductor of chaos, relishing each moment like a crescendo building to a climax. "Let us take a little peek into the future. Shall we?" she taunted, flipping through a series of images that revealed an all-too-familiar landscape. It was a staged photo from months ago, the charity gala that had once been a beacon of hope. Grace's own image glowed on the screen, radiant but now twisted by implications. Whispers swelled like tidal waves around her, each syllable sinking into her skin. Grace! How can you call yourself a champion of charity while harboring such a secret? A voice rang out, turning the murmurs into a storm. Grace felt bile rise. This wasn't who she was. But the fears that gripped her mind, were they true? No more. Peter bellowed, his voice sharp enough to pierce through the suffocating tension. It was fierce, filled with a protective determination. Grace is not her past. She is not defined by others or by mistakes. This isn't what a person should face, not in the court of public opinion. Olivia shot him a condescending smile. Oh, but isn't that the essence of grace? Facing the music? They deserve the truth. Grace swallowed hard, understanding now she had a choice. She could either cower in her shame or be bold and seize back the narrative that had begun to crumble. She stepped toward the podium, channeling every ounce of strength, each breath anchoring her. The audience hushed, curiosity sparking. I've spent years avoiding the truth, she began, her voice steady, yet trembling. You've seen glimpses of my failures, but what you haven't seen is how well I've fought to rise beyond them. Murmurs curdled in disbelief, but she pressed on. They think they know me, but my story is one of resilience, not shame. Every wound you see or think you see reminds me of battles I fought, not just for myself, but for every frightened girl who fears they can't live their truth. Yes, there are mistakes in my life. Yes, there are scars. But they're mine. In that moment, Grace felt a raw power swell within her, transforming discomfort into defiance. Her vulnerability turned into strength. David stepped back slightly, pride emanating from him, while Olivia's smirk faded, realizing she was losing control. The truth is, Lucy Lane was a friend, yes. But I didn't betray her, I was just as lost. I was scared of losing my identity, scared of the judgments that haunted me. Gasps filled the room as Grace continued, revealing her struggles with her mental health, her fears, the strained relationships she couldn't mend. What happened that night was an accident, a chaotic culmination of pressure, expectations, but I will not let that define me. The faces staring back at her began to soften as they absorbed her words. She could see the storm of judgment shift toward curiosity. Empathy was breaking through their icy resolve. As human beings, we all stumble, she finished, her voice solid and clear. We all have shadows. But what we do after defines who we are. I'm still standing. I promise to keep shining, and not just for myself, but for every person who feels they can't. Applause erupted, raw and unrefined, feeding her renewed spirit. David stepped in closer, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, an unspoken understanding sparking between them. Even if it may take time, the truth sets us free, he added, sharing the weight of her revelations. Though Olivia seeks to tear us down, we've built something stronger. We will not be defined by our pasts. The tide of opinions shifted, murmurs of hope intermingling with compassion. Olivia, realizing her power slipped away, stood frozen, anger brewing behind her eyes. But Grace wouldn't let her overpower her anymore. This is where the story changes, she declared, an unwavering confidence rising like a phoenix from ashes. We are more than our flaws. As that sentiment echoed through the room, Grace saw it. Compassion and acceptance sparking in the eyes of those who had once laughed, snippets of her memories coming alive in a brand new light. Now, let us talk about the future, she urged, the crowd still buzzing. Let us talk about supporting each other, lifting each other up. The true power lies in love, community, and acceptance. With David by her side and the crowd rallying, Grace could feel the shadows finally retreating. No longer silenced by their own judgments, they were ready to embrace change. As the applause roared through the room, Grace breathed a sigh of relief. She was free. She turned toward Olivia, a nod of acknowledgement. The battle had exposed the real truth. "Your time is done," she concluded, and the audience echoed the sentiment in a unified roar of support. In that moment, Grace understood, this wasn't just an end, but a beautiful new beginning. The room swelled with energy, and she clung to David's hand, knowing they were ready to embrace whatever came next, together. It was, at last, a story not just of survival, but triumph. Now remember, everyone. This is your moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories like this one. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm and let us keep this community thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how Grace faced her fears. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. You need to subscribe now. Let us keep building together.